You planted it 5 years ago. It looks healthy. It puts on growth every spring. It has never given you a single piece of fruit. I hear about that tree more than any other, and I want to tell you something before we start that will save you some worry. In most cases, there is nothing wrong with the tree at all. There is something wrong with what it was asked to do, and almost all of it can be corrected. There are 7 real reasons. Work through them in the order I give you, because that order is roughly how likely each one is, and the first 2 account for more than half of every case I have ever been asked about. I have been around orchards my whole life. My father worked the same ground, and his father before him. Let us go. Number 1. It is not old enough yet, and that depends entirely on the rootstock. This is the answer far more often than people want it to be, and the reason it catches everybody is that almost nobody knows what they actually bought. A fruit tree is 2 plants joined together. The top is the variety you chose, for the flavor of the apple or the plum. The bottom is a rootstock, chosen by the nursery for how big the tree will get, and how quickly it starts fruiting. You can see the join as a slight swelling low on the trunk. On a very dwarfing rootstock, you get a small tree that starts fruiting in about 3 years. On a semi-vigorous one, 5 or 6. On a full-sized traditional rootstock, 7, 8, sometimes 10 years before you see anything worth picking. So a 5-year-old apple tree on a vigorous rootstock that has not fruited is not a problem. It is a tree that is not ready, and it will come, and there is nothing to fix. How do you find out? If you still have the label, it will say something like M27, or M9, or M26, or MM106, or M25 for apples. The lower numbers are generally the more dwarfing ones. If you have lost the label, look at the tree. If it has grown vigorously and is heading well above head height in 5 years, you are on something vigorous, and you need patience rather than intervention. There is a second version of this problem. Trees grown from a pip. If somebody planted an apple pip from a supermarket apple, that tree may take 10 to 15 years, and the fruit will not resemble the parent at all, because apples do not come true from seed. That is why grafting exists. If you know your tree came from a pip, adjust your expectations rather than your care. Number 2, there is no pollination partner. This is the one that catches the most people, and it is the one that no amount of feeding or pruning or watering will ever fix. Most apples, most pears, many plums, and nearly all sweet cherries cannot set fruit with their own pollen. They need pollen from a different variety of the same fruit, flowering at the same time, close enough that a bee will carry it across. Here is how you recognize it. The tree flowers beautifully every single spring, the blossom is abundant and healthy, and it looks wonderful for a fortnight, and then every flower drops off and nothing forms behind it. If that is your tree, that is your answer, and it is not a care problem at all. What to do about it? The simplest answer is to plant a second tree of a different variety that flowers in the same period. Nurseries group varieties into flowering groups, usually numbered 1 to 7, and you want something in the same group or one either side. If you have no room, there are 2 other options. Some nurseries sell family trees with 2 or 3 varieties grafted onto the same trunk, which solves it in one plant. Or you can graft a branch of a different variety onto your existing tree, which sounds difficult and is genuinely within reach of a careful amateur. And check the neighbors. Pollen travels a couple of 100 feet, quite happily. If somebody 3 gardens along has an apple tree that flowers when yours does, you may already have a partner, and the problem is something else. One more thing here, a few varieties are what is called a triploid, which means they cannot pollinate anything else, and need 2 other varieties near them. Bramley is the famous one. If you have a Bramley and 1 other apple tree, that is not enough. Number 3, frost took the blossom. A tree that flowers and then loses everything can look exactly like a pollination problem, and it is a completely different thing. Blossom is extremely vulnerable. A single night at a couple of degrees below freezing while the flowers are open will kill them, and you may not even notice it happened. The petals brown slightly and drop, and it looks like a normal end of flowering. The way to tell the difference is to look at the middle of the flower. Open one up after a frost. If the center, which is the bit that becomes the fruit, has gone brown or black, that flower is dead. In a healthy flower, it is green or pale. This happens most in low spots. Cold air behaves like water. It runs downhill and pools, and a tree at the bottom of a slope or in a dip sits in that pool on clear still nights, while a tree 20 feet higher is fine. What to do? If it happens most years, the honest answer may be that the tree is in the wrong place, and a later flowering variety would suit that spot better. For a young tree, you can throw fleece over it on a forecast frost night, which is fiddly, but it works. And do not plant early flowering varieties in a frost pocket, however much you want them. Number 4, too much nitrogen. A tree has to make a choice every year between growing and fruiting. Nitrogen pushes it toward growing. So a tree with plenty of nitrogen puts on long, soft, leafy shoots and no flower buds at all. It looks magnificent, and it produces nothing, and the owner concludes it needs more feeding, which makes it worse. Where does the nitrogen come from? Almost always the lawn. People feed the grass right up to the trunk, and the tree gets the lot. Sometimes it is manure applied too generously, or a general-purpose fertilizer used every spring out of habit. How to recognize it? Look at last year's growth. If you have shoots of 2 or 3 feet, very straight and vertical, with big soft leaves, that is a tree in growth mode. A tree ready to fruit puts on shorter growth with stubby side shoots along the older wood, and those stubby shoots are where the fruit comes from. What to do? Stop feeding it entirely. Keep lawn feed away from underneath the whole canopy. If you feel you must feed something, use something high in potassium, which supports flowering rather than nitrogen. Wood ash sprinkled thinly is a traditional and perfectly good source. And be patient, because this takes a season or two to turn around. Number 5. Somebody pruned the fruiting wood off. This is heartbreaking, and it is common, and it is nearly always done by somebody trying to be helpful. Different fruit produces on different wood, and if you do not know which kind you have, you can remove all of next year's crop every single winter without any idea you are doing it. Most apples and pears are what is called spur-bearing. They fruit on short, stubby growths on wood that is 2 years old or more. If you tidy the tree every winter by shortening all the branch tips and removing the stubby bits because they look untidy, you have removed the fruit. Some apple varieties are tip-bearing, which means they fruit at the ends of last year's shoots. On those trees, shortening every shoot removes the entire crop. Worcester pearmain and Bramley lean this way. Plums and cherries fruit largely on older wood too, and they should barely be pruned at all once they have a decent shape, and never in winter, because that is when silverleaf and canker get in through the cut. What to do? If you're not sure what you have, stop pruning for 2 years apart from anything dead, damaged, or diseased. Just let it be. If the tree then fruits, you have your answer, and you can learn the right method from there. I would rather see a slightly untidy tree with fruit on it than a beautifully shaped tree with none, and so would you. Number 6. The tree is stressed, and usually it is buried. I covered this in the last video, and I will say it again here because it belongs on this list. A tree that is planted too deep, so the flare at the base of the trunk is underground, is a tree under constant low-level stress. And a stressed tree does not fruit, because fruiting is a luxury, and survival is not. Same goes for mulch piled against the trunk, a tie that has been strangling the trunk for 4 years, or roots that are still circling in the shape of the pot it came in. Go out with a hand trowel and scrape the soil back from the base. If the trunk goes straight down like a fence post with no widening flare, it is too deep. Pull the soil away and leave it exposed. Then look at what is touching the bark. Anything at all comes off. Number 7. Biennial bearing from not thinning. This one only applies if you have had fruit before, but it explains a great many trees that fruit heavily one year and give nothing the next. A tree that carries far too much fruit exhausts itself. It uses everything it has, ripening a huge crop of small, poor apples, and it does not form flower buds for the following year while it is doing that. So the next spring there is no blossom at all. Then it recovers, fruits heavily again, and the cycle locks in. The fix is thinning, and it feels wrong every time. After the tree has done its own natural drop in early summer, take fruit off until you have one apple roughly every 4 to 6 inches along the branch. Remove the smallest, the damaged, and the one in the middle of each cluster. You will get bigger, better fruit this year, and more importantly, a crop again next year. Now let me give you the order to check all this in, because that is the useful part. First, does it flower at all? If the tree does not flower, you are looking at reason 1, 4, 5, or 6. Age, nitrogen, wrong pruning, or stress. Check the rootstock and the age. Look at last season's growth for those long soft shoots. Scrape the soil at the base. If the tree does flower and then drops everything, you are looking at reason 2 or 3. Pollination or frost. Open a flower and check whether the center is green or brown. Green means the flower was fine and nothing pollinated it. Brown means frost. If it flowered, set fruit, and then dropped it all in early summer, that is often just June drop, which is the tree naturally shedding what it cannot carry, and it is completely normal. Do not panic at that, and if it fruited well last year and nothing this year, that is reason 7, and you know what to do next summer. I have written all of this down properly. A pollination chart with flowering groups so you can work out what your tree needs beside it. A rootstock guide with the expected sizes and timings. How to tell spur bearing from tip bearing on your own tree, which is easier than it sounds once somebody shows you what to look at. A pruning calendar by species, and a page for each month of the year. It is linked below. It costs less than one replacement tree, and it may well save you from replacing a tree that was never the problem. I want to finish with the thing I say to everybody who asks me about this. Do not pull the tree out. Almost every non-fruiting tree I have been asked to look at was fixable, and in most cases the fix was free. It was too young, or it needed a friend, or somebody had been feeding the lawn, or 2 inches of soil was sitting where it should not be. 5 years feels like a long time to wait, but a fruit tree that starts fruiting in year 7 will still be feeding somebody in 50 years, and the ones in the old orchards that outlived everybody were not looked after better than yours. They were just left alone long enough.